So this is one of my favorite examples of hypothesis testing with two samples. So we'll see. So there was a court case in which the Supreme Court looked at evidence to determine if discrimination was taking place on a written aptitude exam. The test was administered to 800 women and 1,200 men. 400 women failed the test and 500 men failed the test. At alpha equals 0.05, can we determine that women had a significantly higher chance of failing the aptitude exam than men? So this was an actual court case in which they used statistics to be able to make some decision of whether or not women had a higher chance of failing the aptitude exam. Was it just random chance that they happened to be doing poorly, or was there something special taking place here? So we'll say P sub W will be the proportion of women who fail, and P sub M is going to be the proportion of men who fail. So my null hypothesis says that there is no difference between these two. So the proportion of women is the same as the proportion of men. But the alternative hypothesis says, wait a minute, maybe the percentage of failures of women is larger than the percentage of failures of men. So again, we list off some information here. We have two samples. We have proportions. We have a one-tail test. All of this gives us a two-proportion z-test. So if we turn on the calculator, go over to press the stat button, go over to tests, go down to 2-prop z-test, press enter, enter in our data. So we're looking at the proportion of people who fail. So your x1 and x2 are going to be those who fail. Out of your totals of n1 and n2, we see, in this case, are there more women who fail than men? So our alternative hypothesis is P sub 1 is larger than P sub 2. Calculate this. Our test statistic is z is equal to 3.67, and our p-value is equal to 0.123. So 3 zeros, 1, 2, 1, 3. Because remember, this is just written in scientific notation. So we see now that indeed our p-value is less than the alpha value. So since the p-value is equal to 0.0001213, which is less than 0.05, which is alpha, we reject the null hypothesis. So we reject the null hypothesis. There is sufficient evidence to believe women have a higher chance of failing. Now, what the Supreme Court looked at after this was they tried to figure out, okay, is it something else ingrained between the types of people that we're looking at? So they tried to understand, okay, yes, if maybe men were trained more because they had more opportunities than women, then we could understand why indeed men have a greater chance of passing. But with all of that, they realized that no, they should have had roughly equivalent pass rates between those. So they deemed that there was some type of discrimination being taken against women on this test. And then they had to figure out how do they rectify those errors. So real example of using this, how it was used in a Supreme Court case.